Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the most striking visual representations of political data we've seen in recent memory. We're going to be looking at the electoral map of West Bengal, India, and tracking a regional shift in power that honestly defies standard political gravity. We'll be mapping out everything from the historical baselines all the way to a massive projection for 2026.
Okay, let's kick things off with a single, incredibly powerful number, 0. Actually, let that sink in for a second. 0. Because that is exactly how many assembly seats the BJP held in the state back in the year 2001. When we're talking about regional power, they essentially had no legislative footprint whatsoever. It's a really stark baseline, right? A total political blank slate. But remembering exactly where this data starts is absolutely crucial to grasping the sheer velocity of the trend we're about to unpack.
Now, contrast that baseline of absolute 0 directly against a dramatic 2026 projection from our source material. We're looking at a staggering 206 seats projected for that exact same party. Going from 0 to 206, that's not just growth, it's a complete structural inversion of an entire political landscape. So how do you even begin to visualize a leap like that?
Establishing the 2001 baseline. Before we can really look at this projected wave, we first got to define the historical playing field.
So the magic number to keep in the back of your head right now is 294. That represents the total number of legislative seats available in the West Bengal Assembly. Whenever we talk about a party dominating or shrinking, 294 is our ceiling. To hold a simple majority and actually govern the state, a party needs to secure 148 of those seats. So keep that 294 denominator in mind as we look at the historical breakdown. Look at how entrenched things were in 2001. Out of those 294 seats, the left front, led by the CPM, commanded a massive chunk of 143 seats. The Trinamool Congress, or TMC, held 60, the INC had 26, and the BJP, as we established earlier, was sitting at 0. The sheer visual weight of the red here shows you exactly who was firmly holding the reins of power at the turn of the millennium.
The data trajectory. So how do we get from that deeply entrenched reality to this massive 2026 projection? Let's track the data.
You'll notice the climb definitely wasn't an overnight phenomenon. Look at this incredibly slow start. They're still sitting at 0 in 2011. Then you see a tiny, almost imperceptible foothold in 2016 with just 3 seats. But then, wow, the momentum violently shifts. There's a massive surge in 2021, capturing 77 seats. And then it just skyrockets into the source's bold projection of 206 by 2026. That is a breathtaking exponential curve. Mapping the Saffron surge. Numbers tell one part of the story, for sure, but to truly grasp the scale of this, we need to see exactly how the ground shifted across the state. Looking back at the 2011 map, it's pretty much a sea of traditional red and green, reflecting those long-standing historical power players. By 2016, honestly, the map barely shifts. It is still overwhelmingly green and red. But if you look really closely, you can finally spot 3 tiny orange pockets. At this point, it's barely a ripple. Fast forward just 5 years to 2021, and the visual narrative absolutely explodes. You can literally see the orange aggressively sweeping across the western and northern regions to claim those 77 seats. The incumbent green shrinks significantly, and that historic red, it's practically wiped off the board entirely. Talk about a striking visual of political momentum in action. The 2026 projection. This historical surge perfectly sets the stage for the centerpiece of our source material, a scenario overtly labeled as the Saffron takeover of Bengal. For 2026, the source projects a landscape completely dominated by orange, visualizing that massive leap to 206 seats. The incumbent green is projected to get squeezed into a much smaller footprint, mostly down in the south, while the red and blue just vanish entirely. It signifies a total sweeping consolidation of electoral territory. Let's put that projection back into perspective against our 294-seat ceiling. This means the BJP would hold 206 seats, leaving just 88 for literally every other party combined. It is a complete mathematical inversion of our 2001 baseline. The party that started as an absolute 0 is projected by the source to dwarf all other political factions combined. So what does this all mean? Regardless of where you stand politically, this data leaves us with a huge, undeniable question. When power consolidates so rapidly from a baseline of absolute 0, how does a shift that dramatic fundamentally reshape the governance, the daily life, and the whole culture of an entire region? It's a fascinating puzzle to think about, and one the data absolutely insist we ask. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.